In this mini lecture, we're going to explore a range of theories about intelligence. I'm going to focus on psychometric theory in some detail, and then we're going to investigate the other theories in the workshop. So, first of all, what is intelligence? We actually need to define this. There are many different understandings of what intelligence is, both among psychologists and across cultures. And I've given you some examples there of Western cultures and African cultures where intelligence is considered very differently. The definition that I like to use is the one on the screen, so capacity for logic and abstract thought, for understanding, for self-awareness, communication, learning, emotional knowledge, memory, planning, creativity, and problem solving. And a short version of that, again, is also on the slide there. The ability to perceive information, retain it as knowledge, and apply it towards adaptive behaviours in an environment. Can animals have intelligence? Well, the short answer to that is absolutely yes, and that is not contested within the scientific community. And I'd encourage you to have a look at some of the wonderful examples of development of intelligence in animals, about animals using tools in the wild, and the many experiments that have been done on animal intelligence over time. Can plants have intelligence? That's much more contested. Plants are able to sense and they can respond to environmental variables, so light and water and gravity and temperature and soil structure and so on. So that suggests there is some brain-like function, information processing system of some form happening in plants. But is that intelligence or not? This is still being investigated, so more to be done in that space. The important thing for us to realise at this point is that theory of mind and language are not actually unique to humans. If my mouse would behave itself, I could move us on. There we go. There are multiple theories about intelligence, and they fall into a set of schools, of course. So there's psychometric theories, which I'm going to talk about in more detail in a moment. Cognitive theories, such as Sternberg's triarchic theory, which we'll explore in the workshops. Cognitive theories, a different cognitive theory would be Gardner's multiple intelligences. And there's also the IQ scale, which Wechsler created and which has been developed further since then. Let's have a look at some of the psychometric theories of intelligence. So psychometric theories are based on a model that thinks about intelligence as a composite of abilities that can be measured by mental tests. So there's a lot of quantitative data in psychometric theory of intelligence. So it might be performance on a number series test, and that might represent a weighted composite of number reasoning and memory ability when we're looking at a complex series of numbers. Mathematical models allow for weakness in one area to be offset by strength in another area in these tests. So if you've got a person who's good at reasoning, they can compensate for perhaps not being quite so strong in number ability. The first psychologist that we'll look at is Spearman. Oh no, I just wanted to add a little bit of more detail about the tests. So as well as reasoning skills, we might also be looking at, so the tests might include something like analogies, and that would be lawyer is to client as doctor is to fill in the gap. Or it might be classifications. So what word does not belong with the others? So human, kangaroo, whale or snake? Answer, of course, is snake, because the others are all mammals. And then you get series completion, like I talked about in the earlier example, what number comes next in the series. Now, Spearman. So Spearman published his first major article on intelligence in 1904, and he concluded that there were just two types of factors that underlie all individual differences in test scores. And the first and most important, he labelled the general factor, or G factor. And it pervades performance on all tasks requiring intelligence. So, regardless of the task, if it requires intelligence, it requires G. The second factor is specifically related to each particular test. For example, when someone takes an arithmetical reasoning test, the performance on the test requires a general factor that is common to all tests, G, and a specific factor that's related to whatever mental operations are required for mathematical reasoning, as distinct from other types of thinking and reasoning. But what exactly is G? It's great Spearman's given it a name, but giving it a name is not the same thing as understanding what it is. And Spearman didn't know exactly what the G factor was. But in 1927, he proposed it might be something like mental energy. Unsurprisingly, there are psychologists that disagreed with Spearman's theory. So Thurston suggests that there are in fact 7 factors that he identified as primary mental abilities, and those factors were verbal comprehension, verbal fluency, number skills, spatial visualization, inductive reasoning, and memory. Got to admit, they all seem to make sense to me, so I'm leaning a bit towards Thurston in that space. And then over time, we move on to Vernon and Cattell. Vernon's Canadian, Cattell is American. And they argue that both Spearman and Thurston have things that are right, and we should look at them as not either or, but both and. So both Vernon and Cattell viewed intellectual abilities as hierarchical, with general ability, G, located at the top of the hierarchy. But below G are levels of gradually narrowing ability, ending with the specific abilities that Spearman identified. Cattell talks in, and Cattell's book is called Abilities, Their Structure, Growth and Action. It's published in 1971. Cattell suggests that general ability can be subdivided into fluid and crystallised, and where fluid abilities are reasoning and problem-solving abilities measured by tests such as analogies, classifications and series completion. And crystallised abilities are derived from fluid abilities, and they include vocabulary, general information and knowledge about specific fields. And then moving on from Cattell, we get Horn who suggests that crystallized abilities more or less increase over a person's lifespan, whereas fluid abilities increase in earlier years and decrease in later years. This is an activity that we're going to be doing in the workshop for the other three major theories of intelligence. And so this is the task that you're going to be doing in the workshop. We'll spend a bit of time on that. So I'd encourage you to make sure that you have done the reading and understand triarchic theory, Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, and Wechsler's IQ theory. And I'll see you in the workshop. Have a great rest of your day.